Thank you to the director of the Institute. I would like to invite our three distinguished guests that we have asked to discuss, to shed light on the complex issue of the budgets, of the security budget. The session will be led by the journalist Amos Harel, the security correspondent for Haaretz newspaper. Along with him are two other very well-known people that we don't have to say very much about. One is Major General Giora Eiland, former head of our institute, and Mr. Sever Plocher, also a journalist from Yediot Ahronot. I'm sure that many of you read his article every weekend, and if you don't, then I highly recommend that you start. I would like to invite you to take your seats. You have an hour to enlighten us about this topic. Can we have a little bit of light? First of all, can we have some light? And another comment that I was asked to make.
Those of you with the earphones, please put it on channel 6, okay? Channel 6 is supposed to provide you with a proper translation. Hopefully it works, okay?
Amos Harel. Good afternoon. Our discussion today is just as the right time because the annual conference has started. We've heard about the missiles being shot by Hamas, and we've heard about the pensions. And tomorrow we'll hear from the Minister of Finance. I will begin in brief and then give the floor to the very knowledgeable people sitting beside me. There is a ritual for years that everyone does their job perfectly, and the press does not analyze the issues of security in as much depth as it should. I repeat myself almost every year. Those of you who are sports fans, there was a popular saying that was popular for different soccer fans, that they said that they play soccer for 90 minutes and then the Germans win. So the issues of security have very loud headlines, but it is always the Ministry of Defense that wins. I think at the opening event for on Independence Day, I think Giora Eiland has more detailed information to present today. I reminded him that a year ago we sat together at the museum, and he explained to me why we can't reduce a single shekel from the budget, and he was very convincing, as Giora can be. We're talking about a very complex, very complicated deliberation that no one's satisfied with its outcomes. So Polska can tell you that that's the way it always is, but people can tell you that, unlike the Brodeur Committee, who investigated this issue after the Second Lebanon War, and its conclusions were implemented only in brief, I don't think that we will see any significant change in the short term. I want to present two of my conclusions from the discussion that was held. One is that the security budget is too high for Israel, but it is too small for the challenges that face us. The security budget, the Ministry of Defense is not willing enough to consider changes to the budget and consider that there are possibly things that could be changed. I would like to say a few words about the conflict that we're facing now. The army always points out the changing threats. Our borders are not quiet. Israel is facing failing countries, facing situations of countries in conflict in Egypt and in Syria. We saw incidents of missiles from Gaza and from our northern border. We also witness we also have to face threats from Syria, at least for the next few years. As former Prime Minister Olmert asked, was the intense preparations made to face the Iranian threat, was it worth the expense? A second question is the issue of equipment for the IDF. There's the issue of maintaining our military advantage. This is something that was mentioned by Jack Hagel, the Minister of Defense in the United States. There is an advantage to expensive military equipment. Major General in Reserve said to me about a year ago that he is reminded of a family that prefers to buy a 42-inch television before it spends money on its own, the family's children's education. We have to consider the different considerations of the army, of the military, before we think of expensive tanks like Namer. We have to mention that within the security system, they feel a certain amount of discomfort with the issues of military pensions. Nitzan Uriel mentioned in an interview for the Kalkalist newspaper, he mentioned that our pensions are too high. I hear that here and there from my colleagues from the defense system, that the official response is that we have in 2003 we changed our pension system and we have raised the pension age, but many feel that it was done too late and the changes were too small. And a few additional words beyond this opening. Benny Gantz, Chief of General Staff, has been speaking more and more frequently about reforms. He is looking at the second half of his term in office and the impression that he will leave when he leaves office. It is possible that the reform related to to sharing the burden will be part of these considerations. The IDF has begun to lay off permanent soldiers, and the process will continue over the next years. Anyone who has followed Benny Gantz's career over the past years, he has never been a great revolutionist. But the question is, as he makes preparations for his ultimate retirement, and the increased pressure by the ministers to reform the security department if there will be changes. I would like to give the floor to Giora Island.